point I have to make is simply that government as government has a responsibility to protect all people, whether they are dressmakers or vulcanizers or taxi drivers or trotro drivers or journalists. Government has a responsibility to ensure that all citizens go about their lawful duty without undue interference, without threats, and without harm. That's a responsibility of government. This responsibility clearly extends to journalists. You understand? And it does not matter whether government is the one doing the violation or people in government are the people who are doing the violation. It is the responsibility of government to protect citizens in the pursuit of their lawful engagements. Fine. Yes, not Argentina, the Philippines. You'll be surprised. There was a huge celebration in the Philippines last week. And what was the cause of the celebration? The cause of the celebration was that the Philippines has experienced 1 year in which no journalist was killed. So the situation is much dire in other jurisdictions and so on. It doesn't mean that we should rest. You understand? So I want to support the call for the protection of journalists and citizens, their rights to pursue their legitimate engagements and so on. I support that fully. But see, I think also that if high-profile cases are not dealt with, it sends a certain signal. And I cannot understand why, over so many years, the killers of Ahmed Swali have not been identified. I'm happy that the sitting president, the current president, has ordered renewed investigations into the case of Ahmed Swali. And I'm hoping that the police service will do all it can to resolve all these high-profile murders. You know, Ahmed Swali's case is a classic case, and we need to come to some closure on the Ahmed Swali case. And I'm happy that the investigations have been reopened under the directions of President John Dramani Mahama. I do hope that something useful will come out of the meeting between the Ghana Journalists Association and representatives of the government. You understand? And as Alhaji Nusaf Hussaini said, you know, there are journalists in all the political parties. There hasn't been a government in Ghana who doesn't have journalists in it, you know, or serving on various, you know, branches and so on. So we can work together to ensure that the rights of journalists are protected. And I wish the meeting every success.
Well, thank you very much. Ghana's Day of Shame is happening on the 24th of February at the headquarters of Socialist Movement of Ghana. Mr. Pratt, what should we expect?
Well, over the last 30 years or more, the 24th of February has been observed as Ghana's Day of Shame by the Socialist Movement of Ghana. And various activities have been organized in order to reinforce, you know, the observance as a day of shame. It's a day of shame because clearly this is a day on which the sovereignty of Ghana was undermined by foreign forces, specifically the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States of America and other Western intelligence agencies conspired to overthrow the popularly elected government of Ghana. And has led to so much catastrophe for our country. I mean, since then, we have virtually destroyed about 400 factories. Our import-dependent position has been exacerbated. You know, we are now even importing fish. We are importing tomatoes. We are importing onions. We are importing cassava, and so on. Now, all of this can be attributed to the 1966 February 24th coup. The power crisis we have today has its genesis in the 1966 coup. You understand? The abuse of the fundamental rights of citizens after the coup is unbelievable. Those who are a little older will remember that after the coup, Mr. Boy Moses, who was an aide to Nkrumah, was actually arrested by the coup leaders, and they built a cage, an iron cage, put him in the cage, tied him to a moving vehicle to drive him around the city of Accra. I mean, what a egregious violation of human rights. Unbelievable. You see, opponents of Nkrumah talk, for example, about the Preventive Detention Act and so on. Immediately they overthrew Nkrumah, they brought in the Protective Custody Decree, which was the same as the Preventive Detention Act. Check the difference. The difference is that during the Nkrumah era, those who were being detained were people who were killing innocent children, throwing grenades at sports stadia, trying to assassinate Nkrumah and so on. They were the people being detained. After the overthrow of Nkrumah, who was being detained? Pregnant women, whose only crime was that they were activists in the Convention People's Party. Pregnant women. I know of women who gave birth in prison. You understand? Activists of the National Liberation Movement were being thrown in prison and so on. The 1966 coup also had very bad consequences for the national liberation struggle throughout Africa, because under Nkrumah, we had established camps here for training the national liberation fighters for South Africa, for Mozambique, for, you know, all of these countries, Angola and so on. The new regime did not just dismantle these training camps. The trainees were arrested and sent back to the oppressive government, and many of them were killed. This is the legacy of the 1966 coup, and that is why this is the day of shame, absolute shame. And there's a famous letter which the new coup leader, Lieutenant General Ankara, wrote to the US president. That letter is so shameful, I think we should find it and publish it, you know, next Monday. Begging for sardine and milk, and milk powder, not even ordinary milk, milk powder, dehydrated milk powder and so on. And saying that if the US will give us sardines and so on, we will forever be loyal to the US and so on. I mean, such a disgraceful letter. These are the people who took over power after overthrowing Nkrumah. Unbelievable. Now this year, we are celebrating or observing the Day of Shame with a public lecture. And the theme of the public lecture is Africa and China in the effort to construct a new world, the perspective of Mao and Nkrumah. And we chose this topic because Mao and Nkrumah led the effort of newly independent states to create a new world based on the principles of equality, justice, sovereignty, and so on. And it's important to revisit the dreams of Mao and Nkrumah, who are giants, you know, giants in the world if it comes to the construction of a fairer world and so on. Mao and Nkrumah are thinkers, original thinkers, you know, who wanted to shape the destiny of the world. Now, to give this lecture, we have invited a friend of mine, very good friend of mine. It's called Dr. Libo, who is chief executive of the Gov't Syndicate. And the Gov't Syndicate is a media house, you know, which sends out stories about China for Chinese in the diaspora and so on. And he's also a senior fellow of the Tricontinental Institute for Social Research, and is also a researcher at the Fudan University in China. So Dr. Libo is eminently qualified to speak about Nkrumah and Mao, and to speak about, you know, the policies of China and Africa and so on. And we think that this is going to be a very, very big lecture. And we have invited all progressives, and indeed all citizens, to take part in this grand lecture on Monday at the headquarters of the Socialist Movement of Ghana, the forecourt of the headquarters of the Socialist Movement of Ghana, located interestingly, headquarters of the Socialist Movement of Ghana, located very, very interestingly on the George Walker Bush Highway. George Walker Bush Highway, next door to Nonegwa Hill Hotel, and the event is going to start at 5 p.m. And we expect all of our friends, all those who love Ghana and Africa, all those who are interested in studying the ideas of Mao and Nkrumah to be present.
Thank you.